Mikey Kay, a former strategic military planner, host of BBC News' Security Brief. He's been analysing the precise planning and execution of the raid on Caracas.
Yeah, I mean, legitimacy aside, I've got many questions on the legitimacy of this. But Hegseth he's right when he says he talks about the complexity of the operation. It was hugely complex, and it was using the latest technology when it comes to fifth generation fighters. We speak about the F-35 a lot. The IDF use it a lot. The Brits use the F-35 a lot. But its use in this particular moment for this operation was more as a sensor platform rather than dropping missiles or bombs. And what I mean by that is, I think we've got a picture of it. The F-35 was used to get very close into Venezuela's terrain. And then it was using the sensors to effectively pick up the GPS locations of the air defense missiles that Venezuela had. They're called the S-300. And they were moving. They were moving to try and get out of the way of what's called suppression of enemy air defense. And that'll be the Americans using anti-radiation missiles, basically, that target the surface-to-air missile systems when the missile systems turn on their radar. And these were moving. And what the F-35 was doing is it was updating the GPS locations as those S-300s were moving to direct what are called TLAMs, Tomahawk Land Attack Cruise Missiles, that were launched by the US from either submarines or warships. And so it basically was a live data feed back to these TLAMs that were updating the GPS locations on the S-300s. And I think we can see a picture of the S-300 on the screen at some point, hopefully, to be able to take out that air defense bit. Now, once that's been done, Lucy, that then allows the Special Forces operation to go ahead. And on the security brief about a month ago, we were identifying the Special Forces capability that was off the coast of Venezuela, and that was the MV Osprey ship, which has been converted effectively to fly Black Hawk and Chinook helicopters. They're called MH-60 and MH-47s off in order to conduct the raid.
You know a lot about the helicopters, Mikey. Obviously, they were hovering, I understand, only about 100 meters above the water. I mean, how tricky was that bit of the operation?
Yeah, so I used to fly similar operations over Baghdad, looking at or going after a capture of high-value targets. So, this is definitely one of those operations. The flying of it is, I mean, you're flying at night on night vision goggles. You're flying in formation. None of the aircraft obviously have formation lights on them or flashing lights on them. So, but it's something you get very used to when you do it a lot. There's a lot of risk involved. Predominantly from what's called CFIT, control flight into terrain. That's a big issue. And then obviously, these Delta Force and the pilots that were flying these aircraft, the Venezuelans do have what's called a MANPAD threat, which is a man-portable air defense system. It's basically it's a shoulder-launched surface-to-air missile that a shoulder can carry, and that's got a lot of what's called flare ejection capability. So any countermeasures that you push out in your helicopter, which for a missile like this would be flares, you push flares out. Flares then create a heat source, and then the infrared seeker on the man-portable air defense missile should, technically take the flare and not go after the engine, because that's what its primary source is. But these missiles have flare ejection capability, and the Venezuelans bought quite a few of them off the Russians. So I think that would have been a significant threat when they were going in low level to go in on the target.
Mikey, we understand this was months in the planning. There was clearly a lot of intelligence involved as well, and everyone has a view on this. But what do you think about how much inside help they must have had, and how close that person or people could have been to Mr. Maduro?
I mean, Lucy, there's no doubt in my mind that as you call it, inside help would have been a mandatory requirement. That's a no-brainer. To what extent it was an inside job, I think, is the big question. Open source reporting at the moment tells us that there was a CIA asset put in there in summertime, and that's key. There's three types of intelligence, Lucy. There's what's called human intelligence, imagery intelligence, which is usually from drones overhead with cameras looking at what's called pattern of life. So Maduro's movements. And then there's signals intelligence, which is effectively picking up phone call conversations and then triangulating to get a GPS coordination on where Maduro was. There's no doubt in my mind that the human part of that trifecta of intelligence would have been the most important when it comes to Maduro's pattern of life, Because if you're going to launch those helicopters on a 2.5-hour mission, very, very low level over Venezuela and Caracas, putting themselves at great risk, you've got to make sure and be pretty accurate, and with a high degree of possibility that Maduro is going to be in the location that intelligence has said that he's going to be in, and that information will be pulled over months, because what they want to do is they want to get a behavioral pattern of where Maduro goes. So if he sleeps in a different place on a Tuesday night or a Thursday night, they want to know with a high degree of accuracy that intelligence will lead to those helicopters going onto Maduro, obviously asleep at night, and making sure he's there when they affect what's called the heli assault force, so the assault on Maduro.
Mikey Kay there from the Security Brief. Here, Sir Keir Starmer has said